Good morning, Berlin. Thank you for joining us. From the American South, I thought I'd get away with wearing a blazer in Berlin. I forgot about stage lights and that it's summer everywhere. My name is Matthew Gault. I'm a contributing editor at Vice Motherboard and a freelance journalist other places. And we're here to answer the question, are video game platforms taking over the world? Yes. Yes, of course they are. That's why everyone's here, right? I had a really stupid intro. I was going to go on about my Fitbit, and then I came here yesterday and saw all the incredible stuff that everyone's working on and realized just how inadequate that really is. I designed a luxury sports car to my spec using a cell phone in real time yesterday. I watched an incredible short film that was designed using Unity yesterday. I played lots and lots and lots of amazing video games. As games have bled more and more into daily life, the tools used to create them are finding new and exciting applications in other markets. Underpinning so much of those new applications and ideas is Unity, right? It's the world's most widely used real-time 3D development platform. Apps made with Unity exist on 3 billion devices worldwide across more than 25 different platforms, from the Nintendo Switch to the PlayStation 4 to the movie theater and even our cars. Games such as Pillars of Eternity and Hearthstone and Pokemon Go are made in Unity, but so are applications like IKEA's Place and Major League Baseball's At-Bat app and movies such as Sonder. Unity offers advantages that other platforms don't. But I'm going to let our guests explain what those are, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So first is Ryan Payton.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan. I run a studio called Camouflaj. It's a game studio. We have about 35 people in the Seattle part of the United States of America. And we just recently released a VR version of our game called Republic that just came out on Oculus Go and Gear VR on May 1st of this year.
Also with us is Sara Sampson.
Hello, my name is Sara. I am the producer of a short film called Sonder. Sonder is a 13-minute CG animated short film that we actually just premiered yesterday here at Unite Berlin. So hopefully some of you guys got to check that out.
And last but certainly not least, Joe Dimiero.
Morning, guys. I feel like that half of the room, I feel like I have to lean in and say, hey, what's up? Those are the cheap seats over there. I'm Joe. I'm the head of digital at an agency called Team One, which is part of Saatchi & Saatchi and Publicis Group. The other hat that I wear is I'm the head and founder of a company called Tilt Shift, which is Publicis Group's immersive realities studio. It's just started up here in the last year, and Unity has been a big part of helping us get off the ground.
So thank you so much for joining us. Sure. We are here specifically to talk about the way gaming applications are changing the way we work and live, specifically Unity. So I want to know, first of all, what drew each of you to the platform. And Ryan, can we start with you?
Sure, yeah. So we got started at Camouflaj using Unity from the first day that we started, and that was back in 2011. That's Unity 3. So it was Unity 3, 4, 5, and then they got into the yearly format. And the reason why we adopted Unity early on was because it was cheap. At the time, it was more or less free. But more importantly, I had spent a lot of time kind of getting my start in the games career working for large teams, 250 people teams on the Metal Gear team in Tokyo, and also another 250-person team working on Halo at Microsoft. And I just had so many meetings that I was going through, just working through different technologies, building engines, and I decided that I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to focus on the creative, and so I wanted to have a solution, and I think Unity was the best option for us at the time. Also, we were really mobile-focused at the beginning, and so Unity early on was obviously one of its greater strengths was on the mobile front of things.
Joe, what about you?
So I'd mentioned this studio that we've started up over the course of the last year called Tilt Shift. Our first project, kind of our founding project, was when Lexus came to us as part of the launch of their new coupe, the LC500. They gave us 2 weeks to solve a problem, which was help us bring to life a car that doesn't physically exist. And we said, cool, let's create a VR experience. And they said, sounds great, you got 2 weeks. And no money in 2 weeks and an impossible task that hadn't, at that time, this was back in 2016, hadn't been done before. And so the guys, our developers in this studio said Unity is the obvious choice for time to market. Everything that you get out of the box, the stability of the platform at the time was surpassed anything else. And it's really proven, I would say, to be the kind of platform that's helped us extend at the enterprise level as we've started to roll out VR experiences and AR experiences across a dealer network in the United States of 240 dealers. It's allowed us to do that at scale in a way that I don't think any other platform would allow us to.
Sara?
Well, Sonder was a pure labor of love, and we had very limited resources, very limited budget, in fact, no budget, so we had to find ways to get really creative with our pipeline. So we learned about Unity. We were actually inspired by a film, Blacksmith, back in 2015, and we thought, wow, maybe it would be kind of crazy to build our own pipeline and see if we can get a game engine to, serve a narrative short film. And after 3 years, we were able to do that.
Perfect. All right, Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about the game that you're working on right now and where Unity kind of comes in?
Right, yeah, so we, like I mentioned, that we just finished our first VR title. We are all in on VR right now. Again, about 35 full-time employees and then about a dozen or so contractors. So that means that we're working on a new VR title with about 50 or so people, which is a lot of people to be investing time and money into a VR game, given how still relatively small that marketplace is. I wish I could talk a little bit more about that title, but that's kind of what we're focusing on right now, is an unannounced, very ambitious VR title that we're trying to take all of our learnings that we've gained by doing our first VR release and really trying to try to break open a few more break out a few more barriers when it comes to VR adoption. So it's a very ambitious, stupidly ambitious project right now.
The VR version of Camouflaj was a port, technically, right?
Yeah, so Republic had been out for iOS, Android, PC, and PS4. Okay. But we decided to, we thought maybe 6 months it would be to be able to do a port of the game to VR. Ended up taking us about 3 times that amount, yeah.
All right. So what do you think about some of the non-gaming applications for Unity?
Yeah, I think what we're going to start seeing is a really amazing convergence of various industries and how they utilize Unity and other technologies, just to be fair. But what I'm really excited about is, I think game makers obviously are the first movers or first of the industries to kind of really embrace Unity. But now that automotive film is getting more into it, architecture firms, really the sky's the limit when everybody's using the same kind of software platform and then starting to share experiences like we're doing at Unite, right? And when CPU, GPU power is going to be there, distributed work is going to be there a lot more, and then we're able to share a lot of not only these learnings but also this technology. Like for the games business, we're pretty good at interactivity, UX, UI, and kind of, I think, really blazing the trail in a lot of new technologies. For example, in VR, most of those games were released early on, but we could use a lot of help on the animation, character side in terms of fidelity from the art business, right? From the film business, and then from automotive in terms of design and also really high quality, that really minute design. Basically, what I'm trying to say in a very long-winded fashion is that I genuinely believe that in the next decade or so, we're going to see just games in interactive just completely take over. It's going to be really, really exciting. We're going to see the blurring of lines all over the place.
Something that stuck in my mind from one of your early comments is that Unity really allowed you to open up creatively and kind of skip some of the parts that you don't not necessarily want to get into. Yep. Can you just explain that a little bit? Yeah,
I mean, it's tough. I don't particularly like being in meetings where we're talking about new technology that we have to either learn or embrace or figure out or get around. For example, you probably all went to the keynote yesterday, and everybody's talking about nested prefabs. It's kind of a long-going joke within the Unity development community that that's never going to happen, and Unity's never going to release it. And now they are, and that's great. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm really interested in, is that things that allow our team members to not have to worry about all these different, especially in VR, performance. How do we get frame rate up? How does occlusion culling get better? I participate in those meetings. I try to lead the charge as best as I can, but I really just want our team to focus on creative endeavors. Unity engine is not there yet. It's really, really not. There's many, many more years to come in terms of just getting the engine and all the different aspects of it to be highly performant, easy to use, to the point where, and we will get there, where creators can just be creatives. And that's where things I think are going to really take off.
That's a great segue. Sarah, I want to ask you some questions. You worked with
You're welcome,
Disney.
Matthew.
Thank you very much. You set me up beautifully. You worked with Disney. You worked with Pixar. You helped create Inside Out, Finding Dory, and Coco. When it comes to animation, you know what it takes. You know all the ins and outs. You know all the programs, all the tricks. Why go with Unity?
Well, again, on our film, we had limited resources. And unlike a big studio like Disney and Pixar, we had to think fast and figure out how we're going to make this film a reality. So Unity was kind of a no-brainer for us. We were really drawn to the community that was already established at Unity, the asset store, the flexibility with creating your own tools. Of course, there's the challenge of building a new pipeline altogether. Like you mentioned, Unity still has a ways to go in getting that cinematic animation performance that we're looking for. So we decided to create a hybrid pipeline. We had a majority of the people on our team who were born and raised on Maya, so we knew that we had to incorporate Maya for animation specifically, but we also knew that we could improve our schedule by eliminating a render farm from our pipeline. And typically in animation, if you look at lighting, for instance, then someone will light a scene, you have to send it off for a render, then you can deliver feedback, and then you make those changes, and then it goes back to a render farm. But in our pipeline with Unity, we were able to kind of tweak a scene and get results immediately, and that was invaluable. It really it put that creativity back into the artist. So yeah, it was great for us.
How much time do you think a project like this would have taken if you hadn't found Unity?
It's a little tricky for us to say that because we were only working part-time, nights and weekends, because it was a passion project. We had our day jobs. But, it depends on the resources that you have. For a Pixar film, it can take up to 5 years from start to finish with the render farm, but that also includes development. So, it really depends on the complexity. For us, if we were working full-time, I feel like, maybe it would have been a 3 to 5 year project.
What are some of the unique challenges of working on a platform like this, especially for animation, and how did you overcome them?
There were so many challenges. We only had one person on our team that had ever used Unity, so we leaned heavily on that person, Jean Moreno. And then we had amazing creative forces on our team, like Faraz Riani, Andrea Go, Yisem Hoi, and these people were just really fearless with digging into this new technology and trying to find an efficient way to make this pipeline work. So a big challenge for us was actually involved assembly, and that's something that we never considered would be such a bottleneck, because we had this huge challenge of taking our assets from Maya and importing them into Unity. It seems simple, but for us, when we're getting fix requests in Unity from our lighters, we have to find a way to efficiently, send those fix requests back and forth. So we had to automate that process, and we had to figure out a way to do batch exports, auto-assign materials once they're in Unity. That's something that we figured out towards the end, and it worked. So yeah, just little gotchas like that all throughout our process.
Another thing I'm curious about is, like you said, this was a passion project on the weekend. You're going in and doing your day job and working, with animators. What happens when you tell them that this project that you're working on is being built in Unity, which in my mind, before this conference, was very synonymous with video games? What's the reaction been?
Well, our goal is that the audience will watch this film and not, be able to guess that this was made with an engine. We wanted it to be absolutely seamless. And when we do reveal that we use an engine, I think people are really excited and people want to learn how can we do that in our pipeline, because you do cut down on cost dramatically by bypassing render farms. You save a lot of time. You can allow your downstream departments to execute quickly and exercise that creativity. So I think that all in all, people are just kind of curious about how we made this film, and I hope that it inspires, the future filmmakers out there to do the same.
Well, it was an absolutely wonderful film. I saw it yesterday. Who else saw it? Did anyone in the crowd get a chance to watch it? You can clap. It's okay. All right, Joe, we're going to move on to you, because one of the things, I think the unsung story in my mind as I've been walking around at the conference is that enterprise is really going to be pushing Unity to the next level in the next few years, and you are a huge part of that. So can you tell us a little bit more about Team One and what they do and what we might be able to see here?
Yeah, so like I said, my day job is head of digital at an agency, and so the work that we're doing in XR is a core part of that, and I'll answer that kind of in two ways. So I think when you look at brands like Lexus, and we work with brands like the Ritz-Carlton, for example, so travel and leisure. We work with brands like Procter & Gamble, Whirlpool. From a marketing perspective and advertising perspective, fundamentally, all of these brands have the same problem, which is they have to create experiences using assets across more channels than ever before. So you think back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you basically had to create a broadcast spot, a radio spot, a print advertisement as part of a campaign. I'm way simplifying here, but basically those were kind of the fundamental parts of it. Today, you've got social media channels, and then you break down social media channels, and you got Facebook and Instagram, and you got live stories, and you've got, in feed units, you've got interactive units. Well, that's just taking social media. Now you got websites. Now you got RM and email. You guys get the idea. So all enterprises right now are trying to figure out, how do I do more with less? Because marketing budgets are kind of universally compressing. Efficiency is king. So where Unity kind of comes into that equation, and I think XR broadly comes into the equation, is allowing you to create assets that can be used across your entire ecosystem in a way that is dynamic, it's personalizable, it's using algorithms and AI, you're able to serve the right content to the right customer at the right time. All of that requires an asset that is interactive and, in many cases, real-time rendered in order to create that experience. So whether you're building a car online, configuring a car, whether you're rethinking how you're going to produce, a 30-second spot, whether you're creating a bit of interactive content, on a social channel, we've just found that it's a much more exciting and immersive experience for the customer at the end of the day when that's interactive, when it's personalized. It's not some static image, not some static asset.
And how is Unity affecting your speed and efficiency?
I mean, that's the key, right? So I'll just say, I'll answer that kind of in two ways again. Where number one is we're faster, we're cheaper. I think we're creating better work because of Unity, but we're also creating experiences that we couldn't have otherwise created because of Unity. And it's interesting. I'll share a couple of specific examples here. So the Ritz-Carlton came to us with an interesting challenge, which is I'm going to get the numbers wrong here, but some massive amount of Ritz-Carlton vacation packages are booked in New York City in the month of December. Not surprisingly, people want to get out of Manhattan when it's 3 feet of snow on the ground. They want to get to a sunny place, right? So they were looking for kind of interesting ways in on that. And so one of the concepts that we put together was a virtual vacation where we would take over a storefront. If you guys have been on Madison Avenue, Barney's and Macy's, all the big window displays that happen there, the idea is to take over one of those window displays, put some headsets back there, fill it with sand, put some heat lamps and a little breeze from a fan with some coconut spray, something like that, and basically put people in the Bahamas, put people in Mexico, put people, in a vacation spot virtually and allow them there to kind of configure and customize the perfect vacation for themselves. So in terms of like speed to market, sure, I guess we could have produced that some other way. We could have gone out and filmed it. We could have done some linear storytelling piece. But this was much more about trying to create a unique experience that was on brand, that would move somebody to go book a real vacation once they got out of the headset. So the capability, again, that Unity has brought to the table for us, it's just, it's really unprecedented.
I heard you had to build a virtual grocery store.
That's another great example of this. So Procter & Gamble is in an interesting place right now, a very competitive category. They came to us with an interesting challenge, which was how do we kind of start to spark ideas with our buyers. So for Procter & Gamble, their biggest buyers are Amazon, Walmart, Costco, the big retailers. How do we kind of spark innovation and ideas in terms of the future of retail for our buyers? And we said, well, that's interesting. What if we took a swing at it from a VR perspective? And an incredible client of ours, a guy named Sean Flannery, who's the head of innovation at Procter & Gamble, said, VR sounds great, let's try it. Nobody's done e-commerce, at least at this point, in VR. And so we created a prototype we only had this is another example, we only had about 2 weeks between when this idea finally started to kind of settle in and when it needed to go live. And the team at the Tilt Shift Studio, these guys are just incredible. They put together what was a shopping experience in VR where you can go into a grocery store, you can find the ingredients that you need for taco night, and put them in your shopping cart and check out. So what problem are we solving there? I don't know exactly yet. That's the twist of this, because I don't see a lot of people like putting headsets on and going shopping in a virtual grocery store yet. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think the experiment there is interesting, and there's a lot of learnings to gain from that, which is how do you create an interactive model in an e-commerce experience that is compelling to a customer at the end of the day. And so that experience now lives on in their innovation lab in Cincinnati and Procter & Gamble's innovation lab. So I think this is kind of the other interesting challenge, and I think probably all three of us are facing this, like from a games perspective, from a film perspective, from more of an enterprise and advertising perspective. Is the technology is getting there. I worry a little bit about, is it a solution in search of a problem, or is there really a customer demand and need that's going to drive us to create different and better experiences? I think that's always the challenge when I'm sitting across from a CMO that's saying, what's the return on investment here, Joe? Why should I invest X dollars in VR or AR? It's a challenge that we face every day.
That's an interesting question. We want to drill down a little bit on that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What do you think's the stopgap there? Do you think the user base isn't quite ready, or?
So there's a couple different ways that we're approaching that. So one is, I'll take Lexus as a prime example of this. So when we create a virtual car asset, and you take the CAD data from the engineer and you put it through the pipeline and you create this incredible, high resolution, interactive, configurable asset that is a virtual vehicle, that gets us pretty much 80 to 90% of what we need to create a VR experience, an AR experience, a broadcast spot, a social media unit. It gets us kind of 80, 90% of the way there to kind of serve all media. So one of the ways that we're kind of answering that business problem is to say, we don't know where the hardware is going to be. We don't know where the install base is going to be. We don't know if we're going to have AR experiences on our phones or goggle-based experiences, or, anybody from Magic Leap in the room? We don't know what's going to happen with Magic Leap. We don't know what's going to happen, from holographic experiences to you name it, right? But if we can start investing in virtualizing the asset, we'll be ready for what comes. We'll be ready for that future. So that's one of the ways that we're solving it. The other way that we're solving it is just brands like Lexus that want to be leaders and are, quite frankly, really investing heavily in becoming the benchmark in the digital customer experience, and are making huge inroads there. They've got to put 5%, 10% of their energy, their resources into experimentation and into new platforms like AR and VR. Those of us in this room, we live and breathe it every single day, but mass consumers, we still know there's a long ways to go in terms of getting an install base that's really going to justify taking dollars away from TV and putting it into AR and VR. We've got a ways to go there in terms of kind of seeing that kind of shift from a budget perspective.
Right, we're still in the really early, almost like Edison days, to use a film metaphor.
That's right.
Just figuring out what all this stuff even is.
It feels a little bit like the old debate of like, will mobile apps win or will mobile web win? Remember when that was like a thing and there were magazines about apps, like the top 100 apps that are out there. It feels a little like we're kind of still in that territory where we're like, are we having the right argument? Are we really focusing on the creative or are we focusing on the plumbing and electric? We're kind of in the battle days of that a little bit again, I think, with this. And I think somehow, some way, this is going to break through, and what this is really about is creating more immersive experiences for consumers at the end of the day, and bringing brands to life in ways that otherwise we couldn't.
Perfect. Well, we've got a few minutes here left. I wanted to open up the discussion to the audience. So if anyone has any questions, I believe there are some microphones in the aisles on either end. If anyone would like to stand up and have some questions for the room.
Hello. I wanted to ask about the platforms and devices, especially in industry. What are the most wanted new platforms for XR? Is it the PC, VR headsets in your experience, hearing from clients, and also what do you think will be the next big things in the future? Have you seen any interest towards upcoming devices or platforms?
Who wants to take it? You want me to take it? So we've struggled with trying to sell in any headset-based anything. We're just struggling. Once we get one of our clients to buy it, they love it. Like everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever!" And the reactions that we get when we can transport a 55-year-old dude who's a car enthusiast into this shiny, brand new, LC500 or LS or LSF Sport or whatever it might be, like basically everything but the new car smell comes with that. They're like, they take the headset off and they're way enthused about it, right?
You can almost get that too.
You can almost get the new car smell. We're working on it. So I would say that has been our biggest challenge. What has been the easier and more sellable platforms have been AR-based platforms that are phone-based, tablet-based. And honestly, it's about social awkwardness. I mean, that's what we run into. So if you're a car salesman or you're trying to sell a vacation or you're trying to interact with the head of, buying for Amazon and you're at Procter & Gamble, like telling your customer to put a headset on and now I can't have a two-way conversation, like that's a very weird situation, right? But if we can look at this thing together and we're it's more collaborative in this way on a tablet or a cell phone. I'm not saying anything you guys don't already know, but like that's a much more sellable platform kind of at an enterprise level, at least at this point. I don't know if you guys need to dominate the conversation. Does that, And I'm taking your wall. I don't need to, but I'm curious, like from a distribution perspective, when you guys are working on a VR game, has that been a part of the equation or like distribution from a headset perspective, like from film? I don't know if you guys feel the same way with the challenges there.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not one VR platform to rule them all in a way, right? It's nice that there's lots of competition, but it also is unfortunate there's not just like a runaway iPhone level success, right? And so we look at all the platforms, with the nice thing about Unity is we can push to pretty much every VR platform out there. But obviously, one platform we look at really closely is PlayStation with its 2 million plus install base. It's really nice. But we're huge fans. We're like over the moon about the Oculus Go because it's just a really nice, comfortable, wireless, it's a relatively cheap piece of hardware with really nice lenses as well. So I'm really the one thing I wanted to mention before we're going to close though is that as long as we are continuing to learn and create great content, that's great. But an essential component, as far as I'm concerned, at least when it comes to VR, is that these larger players that are creating these headsets don't give up. Like they have, I pray every morning, please don't give up, guys. Keep on going because the analyst predictions, these VR headsets did not hit them this last year, and it probably will not hit them this year either. It looks like it's going to be a lot longer game. We're going to have a lot to learn. There's a lot more technology. These headsets need to come down in price, be easier to use, and I'm just hoping that we can keep it going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Especially in B2B kind of stuff, enterprise, AR, VR, a lot of the input naturally is biometric, right? So like movement, things like that. So that's very sensitive data. And if you're a business trying to sell to another business, especially in Europe now, GDPR, that's actually quite a huge blocker, especially with something like a platform like Oculus where we don't know where the data is going. So I wonder if you guys have started to approach this issue. Have you seen solutions? Have you? Yeah, if you could talk about that a bit.
That's a good question.
I'll take a stab.
Sure, go for it.
I would say GDPR. So coming from the United States, it's kind of a looming out there issue that people are starting to talk about. Obviously, Google's big changes here recently in terms of not allowing full access to their data from an attribution perspective. That's causing some churn in the United States. But I would say we haven't solved for that outside of the goggles yet. So I haven't had any clients say, geez, how are you guys going to tackle data and privacy inside the goggles yet? But I think it's the right question to start asking ourselves, because the data, you're absolutely right. There's enormous capability, but enormous responsibility that comes with the data that we can capture from somebody putting on a headset. And the way that we can do iris tracking to really analyze the emotional reaction to a particular image or experience, we can kind of sort of do that in other platforms. VR is going to take that to a whole different level, right? Heart rate, sweat, all the things that we can start kind of gleaning from a human.
Start going into medical data,
right?
And like you can't just consent with a tick for medical data.
That's right.
So the future is quite, especially for companies who are investing into VR, AR stuff. There's a risk there.
So I think it's the right question to be asking. I don't feel like I'm smart enough on the impact of GDPR yet. I think it's to be seen how that's going to impact the states, at least, which is kind of where my focus is. And I see our clients kind of struggling with what's the impact just generally on my business. I think the influence of VR, AR, kind of immersive realities, XR in general, it's really such early days that I haven't run into any issues with that yet from an enterprise perspective.
And we really depend on the platform holders and the hardware makers to actually set a lot of these restrictions as well. And I'd actually prefer that as opposed to each individual developer. I mean, how many millions of developers are even just using Unity, for example? Like, how is everybody aware of all the rules and restrictions? Probably not. So I'm really hoping that this new form and a lot of the new pressures that these larger companies like Oculus, Microsoft, Sony, and so on really take it seriously and help us, so we don't have to be there with like our legal team reviewing every single thing that we're doing, and every other developer has to do that as well.
I think games are really going to probably drive that conversation, honestly, because you guys are already in the kind of mode of capturing PII, and I think there's a lot that the enterprise can learn from what you guys are going to have to kind of work through there in the next few years. Yeah,
we're always pushing areas where we sometimes shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'll make a prediction. I think it's going to be, in the States, I think it'll be, like you said, biometric health data that ends up waking people up and starts the discussion about where the line should be and what the rules are going to be. And it'll be some game. It'll either be some game or it'll be something like 23andMe.
Yeah.
There'll end up being a horror story off of that gets people to start having that discussion.
I'll give you a company to watch out for in that space. There's a healthcare company based in San Francisco, actually, it's called Forward. Their whole mission is to basically create the Apple Store of healthcare, so you can walk in, and it's a fully immersive experience of biometric readers and touchscreens and tablets and all that basically analyzes your well-being and diagnoses you. And there's a doctor on staff, but it really is all about the experience, the technology that really does the heavy lifting. I think they may be a company that probably is one of the first that's out there trying to address how privacy and whatever the GDPR, implications will be in the States. They're probably one of the first that will be out there. A guy named Adrian Aoun is the founder of that and is an amazing dude, and I know that he's working through some of that company called Forward.
Does anyone else have any questions from the audience? We are about out of time. That's it now? Well, I think the question was, are game platforms taking over the world? I think yes. I think, the people in the crowd here on the panel would say yes, unequivocally. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Now I got to see the phone.